I'm very pleased to introduce to you our presenter, Joni Zander. Joni is the Secretary of the Board of Trustees for HOWA. She has been on the road for almost 3 years and teaches people what they need to know to become successful in the van life through her YouTube channel, The Caravans. She presents her information through a solo female perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our presenter for this morning on Nomadic Connections, Joni Zander.
Hi, everybody, and thank you so much, Alicia, for that great introduction. I am so happy you guys all are here. Let's get into it. So just gonna dive right in. So traveling by yourself is great. You get to learn so much about yourself and explore your surroundings. When you decide to go somewhere, you just go, right? You do what you want to do when you want to do it. But finding people you're going to enjoy meeting up with can really enhance the nomadic experience. But it's all about balance. So there are some nomads who have their tribe and travel around together for extended periods of time, and others who have lots of nomads they camp with off and on and kind of bump into each other somewhat randomly. I tend to be in that second category. The trick is to determine what suits you best and finding the right people for you. One of the best ways of finding your people is through mutual interests, whatever those are. This has recently gotten a lot trickier with the pandemic, but let's assume that we'll be able to travel and meet in groups again, right? That's what we're all hoping for. There are van life meetups all over the country, and I'm going to go into those in depth. And then there are also events that aren't specifically van life events that almost always attract other nomads. So examples would be music events, political events, sporting events, and events for specific hobbies like art or off-roading. When you go to an event, just look for the other vans because we're usually parked next to each other. We're always wanting to chat up and see other people's vans, so we tend to park together. In case you didn't know, the universal signal to approach a van or a rig or an RV is an open, unobstructed door. So this means that the door is open and there isn't something hanging in the doorway to block the view. Be sure to say hello from a distance to make sure that they're open to meeting someone. And if they are, introduce yourself and let the networking begin. Even if large group gatherings are uncomfortable for you, and they are for me, they can be worth it because it's a concentrated group of people who enjoy some of the same things you do. And that's so often how friendships start. It can be a great way to meet a couple of people, maybe a small group of people who you want to travel with or, like I say, bump into later. One way to make these events work for you is to look for smaller interest groups within a larger event, like a bird watching activity or a yoga class. If the event you're going to has a Facebook group or a meetup group, introduce yourself and your rig to try to get to know people before the event even starts. This way, you can look for that rig and a familiar face once you get there. And when you go to these events, these in-person events, consider making a sign that has your name on it that you can display in your window to help people find you at the event. Because if you've been connecting with people in the meetup or Facebook group, you've likely made some connections and people will be looking for you, just like you're looking for them. You may be wondering how to find events for nomads specifically. Lisa over at Vans, let me get to my share screen. Okay, hopefully I'm sharing the right thing. So Lisa over at Vans has maintains the most inclusive list of van life events I've ever found. She calls it the complete guide to van life to all 2020 van life, schoolie, RV, and tiny house events, and it really is. She does this each year. She includes our very own Women's Rubber Tramp Rendezvous and the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous, plus all of the Escapers convergences, Overland Expos, van life gatherings, tiny house festivals, and more. So be sure to check it out and see if any of those sound like fun. And let's just take a look real quick at how this is. So you have a key to the event. So depending on what kind of event you're looking for, there's female only, younger crowd. So you can get an idea for what it's going to be. And then, you know, there's things that I haven't even heard of. The gals are out with their travel trailers in Quartzsite, Arizona, and they seem to be a group that meets occasionally. So, so great place to look for those events. If you, let's see, sorry, if you like to go, I'd like to go into the events for Nomads in a little more depth, because I think this is where you're going to find your people to bounce around the country with. Most of these events are going to have participant-led workshops, so I'll just cover what makes each of them unique. So just keep in mind that most of them have some participant-led workshops where you can learn from each other. Van life gathering type events are hosted mostly by Instagram influencers, and they attract a fairly young crowd, although everyone is welcome. These tend to have a small fee and are held over a long weekend, as most of the participants work. They get great sponsors and have giveaways for gear and goodies, and typically have yoga and meditation sessions, that sort of thing. Overland Expo and tiny house festivals also have a pretty hip vibe. The Overlanders tend to have more capable rigs for off-roading, so they can be really fun to tour. The Overlanders are generally really into kind of the high-end gear. All of the things. And of course, a tiny house fest is where you would tour tiny houses, and they generally have workshops on building tiny. So this might be a good place to go if you're wanting some ideas for building out a van, and because you can easily kind of translate building tiny to building in a van. Now, Escapers is an organization that I'm a member of, and it's a very large, very active group that is part of Escapees. Escapees is the oldest RV club in the country, and it's focused on working age, and the Escapers branch of Escapees is focused on the working age RVers. So there are a lot of digital nomads as members. The members tend to have kind of bigger, fancier rigs, but there's a lot of van lifers in it as well. There is a $40 annual fee to join Escapees, but no additional fee to join Escapers. Most of the Escapers events are paid events with a professional event coordinator that include loud bands, dance parties, and adventure outings, just to give you an idea of what to expect. It is not for everyone. Escapees, again, with that $40 membership fee, has lots of smaller interest groups for just about anything you might want, including nomadic families, boomers, Stonewall, and Friends of Bill W., just to name a few. They also have their very own RV parks throughout the country, an RV or job exchange, and for an additional fee, they offer mail forwarding services, roadside assistance, and health insurance. And they also have discounts and things like that for other things. RVing Women and Sisters on the Fly are two established women's camping groups that mostly attract weekend and seasonal RVers, although a lot of full-timers are members as well. Each has its own distinct vibe, and you'll want to check out their websites and Facebook groups to see if it's a group that you might want to join. Rainbow RV Club is North America's largest gay and lesbian RV camping club, and they have a lot of events throughout the year. And then there are the three most popular solo groups are Loners on Wheels, WIN, which stands for Wandering Individuals Network, and Escapees Solos. Loners on Wheels and WIN require their members to be legally single. All three of these groups refer to singles, which can have kind of a hookup connotation, even though officially the groups are not hookup groups. There's also a new Escapers Solos group that is very definitely for people who are traveling solo rather than for being for singles. Most brands of RVs have annual meetups with owners of that brand, including brands that are no longer manufactured. This is the more popular or more of a cult following a brand has, the more meetups they tend to have throughout the year. But almost all of them meet up in January, usually around Quartzsite. And there are even events for the different brands of cargo vans, like there's a Sprinter Fest in June in the Portland area, Portland, Oregon area, that features vans built out by lots of different people, including self-built vans. And this can be a great event to go to if you're getting ready or you're planning your van build. You can get a lot of great ideas no matter what brand of van you're planning on building out. Now, all of those are what I would consider more organized groups, usually with fees to attend and often with a company or some sort or either as, as either the host or a major sponsor. So I consider all of these to be a bit more commercial. Now, this doesn't diminish their value in helping you meet people. It's just something to know about these events. And then there are what I would consider to be the more organic groups. These tend to be free, these tend to host free events, often without even a registration process. You just find out about it and show up. These events attract more full-time nomads than the events I've already listed. And they tend to also attract more of the van life, vehicle dwelling crowd as well. Now, of course, the granddaddy of these events is our very own Rubber Tramp Rendezvous, or the RTRs. What makes the RTRs different from all the others is that it is hosted by our own nonprofit, Homes on Wheels Alliance, and not only is there no membership fee, there's also no fee to attend. And RTR is a great place to meet other nomads. The people self-select into interest groups for camping, which can make it really easy to find your people. In the past few years, several groups have met in conjunction with the RTRs and then became their own thing. One of the best examples of that, I think, is Schoolypalooza, which started in 2017 and is kind of a brand event in that it is centered around schoolies, although schoolie isn't actually a brand. There's lots of brands of schoolies, although any rig is welcome to attend. Now, if you are in a schoolie or you want to be, this is definitely going to be a place that you want to check out, or an event that you want to check out. Now, PAR-TR, which as an aside, I think is a really clever play on the RTR, started a few years ago and has itself spun off some other events, including the Nomad Center Camp. And once you get into some Facebook groups of other nomads, you're going to see these events listed, as well as checking out the list that I showed before. Now, even Howa has kind of had our own spinoff with the Howa Caravans. I mean, it's not really a spinoff, but it's just another service that we offer. And in non-COVID times, the Caravans provide a place to camp with other nomads year-round. Participants typically find informal opportunities to learn and practice their new mobile living skills, make friends, and of course, have fun. The usual pattern for a caravan group is to camp on public land for 14 days, then move to camp at another place for 14 days and continue moving on. Now, this isn't a comprehensive list by any means, and I'm sure that there are others that I haven't even heard of. And I've been on the road for 3 years. So that was just a sampling that I hope sparked a starting place for you to search for the group or groups that are right for you. Branch out and try new groups so that you always have someone to bump into when you want. Okay, now that's all true if we get to meet in large groups again. But until we're able to meet in person again, meeting others online is an important tool. Social media is a nomad's best friend when it's used wisely. So let me just share my screen and show you some tips and tricks for finding groups. Just need to navigate here just a little bit. Okay, so when you're on your Facebook homepage, so you're gonna, hit the home button here, and there's two different ways to find groups. One way is just to type in your search bar, maybe camping, and then the first thing that comes up is going to be groups. So you're going to hit the see all button, and then you can scroll through. Now this search term up here can be as broad or as narrow as you want it to be. Now I've gone very broad with the term camping, and you can see a ton of camping groups listed. And I'm just going to scroll down here. I have one particular one in mind because I've gone through this. But you can see all the different camping groups that that you can look into. Okay, I'm not finding the one that I want. I want to show you the other way to find a group. So let me go back to home. The other way to find a group is to go over here and go to groups. And so that's over here in the left. And Facebook knows so much about you. And so you're going to be able, so Facebook is going to give you a lot of good suggestions, kind of like Netflix suggestions, right? They kind of know what you've been watching. And so Facebook is going to give you a lot of great suggestions, and you can just choose a group here that looks interesting to you. Now, I'm actually going to go back up here and I'm going to search for the Our Village community, because I want to show you their group is set up really well. And I want to show you how to kind of vet a group before you even ask to join. So you're going to come up here to the About, and you're going to read the description. You're going to hit the See More button, and you're going to read this whole thing. And now you can see this one's a pretty long one, but it's worth your time to read through this, to vet the group and see if it's the right vibe for you, see if it's the right flavor. And then below that is members, and you can see how many of your friends are members of this group. So, I have 11 friends as members in this group. And then the other thing you want to do is look at the admins here. Now, if it's a large group, I strongly caution you in joining a large group that only has one admin. Usually that's a sign of a not very healthy group. But you can see this one has 4 admin. And if you hover over the admins, you can see, like this one here, Curtis. I have 18 mutual friends with Curtis. So that tells me, personally, he's probably an escaper, which I happen to know he is. And so you can also see that, what else? How many admins you have. So so it's good to see, like, oh, are these friends who I want to be in a group with, and then you also want to look at the activity of the group to see, how active it is, because inactive groups are dead. They're not interesting. And then you want to read every single rule, no matter how many rules there are. So if their Facebook groups are allowed to have up to 10 rules. And so read the rules and make sure that you can abide by those rules before you hit the join group button. Now, if this one doesn't happen to have questions, it only has the I agree to the group rules. But if the group has questions, now that I'm on a computer, if you're on a phone, you're going to have to scroll down to see all of the questions. Be sure you answer the questions and agree to the group rules before you hit the submit button, because that really helps the admin out. It saves them a lot of time. So I'm going to submit that because I do want to join that group. Okay. Now, another social networking group is actually, and it's why I chose the Our Village community Facebook group to show you, is Our Village itself. So Our Village is a social networking platform all of its own that that is just specifically for RVers. And so a couple of things I want to show you about Our Village, because it's very different than any other social network platform. You can update your location so that other people can see where you are. So you can see on this map here, this shows there are other Our Village people in my area. So, and the way that it does that is you update your location. So you can tell it whether you're at an RV park, whether you're boondocking, your home base, or you're traveling. And when you hit that, you'll type in your city, state, and how long you're here for. And I just want to show you one thing. It defaults to notify me of new arrivals in my area. I like to unclick that. I don't like to get emails about people coming into my area. This is especially good though if you're at an RV park and you want to know that other people are coming in. It's a good way to meet people in your area from the safety of your computer before you actually go, knock on their door or you call out to them. Okay. Another thing that I want to show you is the groups. So you can browse groups in here. And one thing about Our Village is that it's really, really easy to start a group. And so a lot of people start groups before they even check to see if there's already a group like it. And so, so that can be a problem with Our Village. And so I want to scroll down and show you the advanced search. So you can search by category. There's alternative lifestyles, bloggers, there's escapees and FMCA. Now, the RTRs we have our own group in here, but we're not a category yet. And so you can see like if you're interested in women's groups or politics or mental health or whatever it is that you're interested in. I'm going to actually click onto the brand type style of rig and let it do its thing for a second. And so what you're going to do, so it automatically scrolls down for you, and you can see now it starts with they're in order. By default, they're in order of how many members, which is a great thing because you probably want to join kind of largish groups. You want to have at least probably 100 members because otherwise it's just too small. But you can see even on the very first page, so there's 7 pages of results, but on the very first page, you already get down to under 100 members. And there are so many groups that were just started and kind of abandoned. I'm just going to the very last page to show you. The last page is full of groups that only have 1 member. so that's kind of an odd thing. And I found, when I searched, I found 3 groups, I think, at least 3 groups that were sprinter groups, and 2 of them only had 3 members each. So, I don't know. But I also want to show you one other thing about groups. If you go to groups I've joined, because presumably the groups that you've joined have people that have similar interests or memberships that you do. So one of them is full-time RVers. One of them, I'm going to just do the escapers. And so if I click on here.
Excuse me, Joni.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. You have 5 minutes left for your presentation, and the chat is now open for questions from your attendees. Thank you.
Thank you. So when you go into a group that you're a member of, you can click on the group map. And when you scroll down and you do the miles, you can do all members, and it's going to show you And then you can scroll. It's so slow. And then you can see all the members around you, and you can see who's there and see who you want to meet up with. Okay, and then you already know about meetups because you're here. But I want to show you just real quick something that you may or may not know about meetups is if you scroll down, you can see the attendees and you can click see all, and then you can actually chat with someone. So if they have it enabled, okay, there's going to be a chat box. Here we go. There's going to be a little chat here. And so you can, maybe someone in the chat here said something that you wanted to follow up on. So then you can just click on their name and chat with them. Okay, so that was a lot of the different ways to make the online features work for you, or the online groups. So volunteering is another great way to meet people. There are volunteer opportunities within the nomadic community with HOWA, as well as pop-up volunteer opportunities like desert cleanups. Online, if you're proficient with Facebook, most groups could use another good moderator. And then when you find an online group you like, the best way to meet your people is to participate, of course, just like in person. Ask relevant questions, share answers when you know the answer. And if you aren't sure, either state that you aren't sure, but you think such and such, or look it up to provide more value. And then seek out people to have conversations with. Do you like how they interact? Do they seem like someone you would like? Look for commonalities, people you share something with, maybe where you grew up, or people who have the same rig or into the same thing that you're into, and start conversing with them in the group, assuming that it is on topic. And if it's not on topic, then private messenger if it isn't. And if you decide that you want to send a friend request to someone in the group, just be sure to message them first before sending just a random friend request. You're going to have a much better results that way. And if they don't see your friend request or see your message, then you can just respond to them in the group and say, hey, I sent you a PM, please look for it. And once you've found your groups, here are some tips for being a good nomadic friend. So stay in touch on social media. Reach out to your friends if you might be in the same area. Be clear in your communications. So don't assume that you're going to be invited to join, and don't get your feelings hurt if someone doesn't want you to join them. It's important to recognize that sometimes we just need a little time alone. And if you are camping together, that doesn't mean you have to spend all of your time together. A lot of nomads are introverts and just want to be alone for a while. Now, if you do want some company, invite your friends to join you and let them know where you're headed next. And if your plans are flexible, offer to meet in the middle. Now here's one. Avoid stage 4 clingers or becoming one. So a stage 4 clinger is someone who doesn't give you your space and doesn't understand that you don't always have to travel together at every stop. Communication is key to making sure everyone's needs are getting met when traveling together and traveling apart. So when you do find your friends, the benefits are that you can learn from their travel experiences as they can learn from yours. You'll have people to explore with and share the things you find. You'll have people to come and go with, and camping together gives you a sense of security. So you'll have people nearby to help each other. You can offer errands, maybe run into the store for water or supplies if one of you isn't feeling well, and you'll be able to watch each other's stuff or pets when one of you is away from camp. And there's just nothing that compares to hanging out with other people who get your awesome lifestyle. Okay, I'm ready for questions.
Okay. I will read
for timing.
I will read your questions in the order that they were sent.
Great.
Your first question is coming to you from Veronica, and she's asking, you mentioned a way to let people know to drop by, but is there a way to indicate do not disturb? Is it just a closed door?
So yeah, generally it's a closed door. You can even, some people, like if you're at an event, some people put a sign in their window saying, hey, I'm busy, or come back later, or something like that, or do not disturb. If it's too hot to have your door closed, then you can just drape a towel or a blanket or something over the door so that you can get some airflow without actually people being able to see you. And still sometimes people won't get it, and you just have to be firm in your boundaries and just say, hey, I'm busy, you know, please come back later, or I'll find you, where are you?
Okay, and Sue says, does one need to have an RV to join SKPs? And she also thanks you for your great presentation.
Thank you. So no, you don't have to have an RV. We actually have had people vehicle dwelling in escapers, and escapees is the same. They're very open. They don't discriminate, but we do discourage jerks.
Okay, and Janet wants to know, can you email out a list of all the organizations you mentioned? I couldn't write them all down.
Yes, and I can even send out we can maybe, I'm assuming that we have the capability of doing that, Alicia. Do we have the email addresses for everyone?
Oh, okay. So Joni, in this case, the video will be uploaded to Howard's YouTube
Oh yeah,
channel
yeah.
for review, for right, so they can view it there again and have a
Yes.
chance to pause and write them down.
Well, and I can make sure that those are in the description too.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Jim Bob, Florida, wants to know, are you all aware of newer travel apps?
Oh, I didn't even talk about travel apps. Yes, there are great travel apps out there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mayor says, I'm obsessed with having internet. How far out in boonies can you get without satellite?
It just depends. It depends on the area and whether there are towers. And my favorite resource for figuring that out is actually Campendium, and because they give you the cell tower listings, like I mean the cell signal listings, and you can actually, if you're a sponsor, like a supporter, if you're an annual supporter, you can actually sort camp spots by cell signal.
Wonderful. Lisa B wants to know, good morning. Since we only stick to one topic question, what is a good way to access Nomad friends?
The Caravans, and the Facebook groups, for sure. Yeah. So so do a search in the Facebook groups, you know, in Facebook for those groups, and see what you want, who you want to meet.
Okay, and she added additionally, please explain your question or you're referring to in Facebook.
What was that?
Lisa may need to rewrite her question.
Oh yeah.
She please explain your question or you're referring to in Facebook. So she may need to rephrase that for us. So
Sure.
Trinky asks, can you recommend a way to connect with people who may only live in their vans during an emergency? I would like to form or join a group that can help each other out if needed and get to know each other along the way.
Only in emergencies. I don't know of a group like that, but that's not something I've ever looked for because I'm full-time. So do a search in Facebook, like I showed you, and then you know, if you come up empty, definitely, if you're willing to form a group, do that. And some Facebook groups allow you to share other groups, and some don't. You just have to read the rules. But if you are, like, I know that you can, there's a large women's Facebook group, Friendly Women RV Camp, I should remember this, I used to be the admin for it. But it's a group that does allow, it's huge, and it allows you to share groups.
Wonderful. So if you guys have more questions for Joni relating to nomadic connections, it's a great time for you to send in more questions for her now. And you have lots of compliment. Rose is saying, thanks, Joni.
Thank
This
you
has
guys.
been an awesome resource. And then Karen wants to thank you again. So you're having beautiful compliments on your presentation today. Any additional questions for Joni? Please send it in so Joni could give additional information until more questions come in.
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh. So, yeah, so, um, yeah, so travel apps, there are some apps that actually allow you to connect up with other people. I don't know of free ones. Jim Bob, maybe you can, if you know of some free ones, maybe you can drop that in the chat. But I know that there's a van life, I don't know, I don't remember what it's called. It's an app that I have that I don't really use. Sometimes what happens okay, so it's the Van Life app is what it's called. And it actually might be free to use now. But it's one that allows you to kind of connect with people. It's designed to be that connector.
Okay, so there is someone else who wanted to know more about apps. And he says, I'd like to know more about travel apps from Renee.
Okay. The apps that I don't use to find other people. I use them to find camp spots. So those are and weather, of course. Now, I will say this though, once you have found your friends, my friends and I actually share our location on Google Maps. So I can see in real time where they are. Not to stalk them, not to, surprise them necessarily, but to kind of figure out my travels and see if they're gonna be nearby. And so I find that to be really useful. There's an app that's specific for that. It's like family locator or something. I don't remember the name of it. I didn't like that one as well. It seemed to use a lot of data, but just simply Google Maps works really well for that.
Okay, and so Veronica asks, do nomads have personal nicknames?
Some do. Some do, some don't. Some people are really really identified by their rig. Like a lot of people know me as the Galavan. Although I don't go by the Galavan, I go by Joni Zander. So.
And Rose asks, have you met any sewing groups on the road?
I haven't, because that's not something that I do on the road. I mean, I know how to sew. I have a sewing machine that a friend stores for me, but I'm sure there are, as there are probably, knitting groups and that sort of thing as well. I do know a few nomads who travel with their sewing machine.
Right. And Jim says, what are your feelings on this summer and fall caravan activity? Thank you for your presentation.
Well, you're welcome. I don't know. I actually personally, so not as a representative of HOWA right now, but just personally, I feel like caravanning is actually a fairly safe way to interact with people, because you can stay in your van. You can even have your windows rolled up, and you can very much social distance with a group of maybe 5 people and be pretty, self-sufficient and self-contained, and still have a little bit of socializing.
Wonderful. And Jeannie just want to thank you. She said she's a newbie and she's learned a lot from you today.
Oh, good.
Mary,
Oh, I'm so glad.
Mary continued, you have given such great resource to carry questions forward. Would you, and she would love to have a note with all the links.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll do that in the description of the YouTube replay.
Karen asks, what do you recommend for joining the small groups out social distancing at this time?
In person, so small groups. Well, so really kind of getting your little bubbles on wheels, right? Your little safe bubble, your vehicle, together, and socializing within your own. Everyone stays in their own little bubble so that you're not interacting in person necessarily, but you're still there. You can still see people. You can maybe exchange phone numbers and talk to each other through your windows.
And Kim Marin asks, please discuss safety with regards to making new connections with people. For instance, what tips could you give getting a feeling if someone is safe?
Mm. My biggest tip is to use your intuition, just kind of listen to yourself. Look for those social cues. Like if someone is trying to get too close too fast, then you might want to just make sure you set some boundaries with them. Um, I I tend to be I tend to maybe hurt people's feelings a little bit because I'm like, no, you know. So you know, there's definitely a kinder, softer way. I'm sure Alicia's way better at this than I am because she's nicer than I am. But really just look, you know, just kind of notice how people are interacting online before you decide to meet them in person. I have met a lot of people in person that I've met online, and it's been great, but I really vet them pretty well. I really make sure that excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat now. I really make sure um, that I really kind of understand who they are. Like, you know, I don't, like if I meet someone in a Facebook group, I'll go and I think I like them and I'm going to go meet them. I'm going to stalk them on Facebook before I go meet them. I'm going to make sure that they're not some crazy, you know, something. And you never know, but you know, you can kind of get an idea.
Wanda says, hi, I'm interested in a group looking to go from state park to state park. Is there such groups? Thank you.
There might be. That's something you're going to have to search on Facebook, because that, again, is not something that I've looked for. So yeah, and it also could, that might be something where our village might help you, because people in our village, I think our village works best if you are someone who camps in a campground, because you can look and see like who is in this campground and meet them safely from your computer before you actually meet them online or in person.
And then Tammy says, good morning. Thank you for your presentation. Is there a protocol for leaving a group, or do people just drop without saying anything?
I'm not sure if you're talking about in-person group or online group. In person, we joke about people who ghost. Some people do that. There isn't really a protocol in my friends groups. We are crazy Facebook Messenger chatters. So when we get together, we start a location specific Facebook chat and or messenger chat. And so if someone leaves without actually physically saying goodbye, they'll usually drop in the chat, hey, I'm heading on to wherever, and everyone just says goodbye. So, you know, a lot of people will kind of walk around to everyone's rig and say goodbye. Some people aren't comfortable with goodbyes and they just leave. And the cool thing about Nomads is we kind of get that. Like, we kind of get that some people don't like to say goodbye, and so they'll just leave. And we might give them a hard time, but we understand what they're doing. Now, in online groups, if you make a big deal out of leaving, it's called flouncing, and people will make, depending on the group, people might make relentless fun of you. So if you're leaving a Facebook group, just leave. Just, you don't need to announce it. You don't need to say, I don't like this, so I'm leaving. You just leave. If you don't like the group, it's not for you, and you leave.
And Rose says, how do I find the ones traveling with my interests?
So I mean, that's kind of what the whole presentation was about. So you can look on and, you know, search. So when I did the Facebook search example, I made the search term super broad. But what you could do instead is make it really narrow. So if you're yeah, I mean, the classic example is underwater basket weaving, right? That's like the non-hobby that that everyone uses as an example. And so let's say that you are looking for women RVers who are into underwater basket weaving. So you would put all of those search terms in the search bar, and you should get better search results there.
Okay. Do you find most nomads, Deidre asked, do you find most nomads tends to stay in areas where they have friends?
You know, everyone has their own level of needing friends around. And so there's really nothing you can say about most nomads. You know, it's each group of friends has their own flavor. Each, you know, it's all different. And so it really is about finding your people, the people who mesh with you, the people who, I like to say, have the same, their weird matches your weird, right? I mean, we're all weird, but different styles of weird go together. And so it's really all about finding that. And I kind of lost what the question was. Did I go off topic?
That's okay.
Okay.
Okay. Sue had asked, when folks have found their friends at events, do most nomads keep going to the events or do they break off and travel with a small group?
It really depends. So in the so I have a couple of examples. So with escapers, which is a huge group, and their convergences are huge. Like the annual bash this year was 800 people. But there are convergences all year long when we're not in a pandemic. And so there are a lot of people who go to all the convergences, like they go from convergence to convergence. And then there are a lot of people who find their smaller group at a convergence, and then they'll spin off and they don't need to go to another convergence. It's a big loud party, right? And so so they'll just go, and maybe they found their people who like to go off-roading, and so they'll just continue meeting up with those people. So it really just depends on how outgoing, how extroverted they are. I mean, some people love big events. I'm not one of those people.
Wonderful. And Laurie asked, can the tower locator app be named again? I missed it before. Thank you for all your tips.
Oh, so it's actually not a tower locator app, although there are some, and you would want to look up those. Open Signal is a good one for that. But what I use for finding, I'm sorry, I need to stretch my legs out. For finding boondocking spots that have good signal, I use Campendium. Now, most of the boondocking or camping locating apps like freecampsites.net also show, people will report cell signal, but I think Campendium does it better. So that's the app that I use, is Campendium.
Wonderful. And Lisa B asked, what's the best way to vet personalities online or in caravans?
Well, it's kind of the same as just like, when you were in school, right? You just kind of noticed how people interacted with each other, and some people kind of match your style of interaction and some don't. And it's kind of the same online and in caravans. You'll kind of just notice, just be observant and notice their style of interaction, because really that's, and if you can kind of get a feel for their values, because I think, if you find the people who have similar values to you, you're going to be more likely to be friends.
Right. And Jim Bob wanted to contribute a little bit of info to say the cell tower hunting app is Network Cell Info Lite.
Thank you.
Then, what clarifies anyone as a nomad? Is it okay to travel between sticks and bricks and a rig and still be a nomad? From Rose.
Well, the technical, if you look up in the dictionary, a nomad is full-time, but we use that term much more loosely. And yes, absolutely, it's okay to go from sticks and bricks to your rig and back. Lots and lots of people do that. And all of the groups that I listed, none of them discriminate against part-time folks.
Okay, at this time, we'll ask for more questions for Joni. If you don't have any other questions, Joni will go ahead and give you some additional information from her presentation.
Okay.
And you have so many compliments and thank yous and wonderful presentations. I skipped over many of those, Joni.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And I I don't know that I have more to contribute. Sorry.
And Joni, I have a question personally on our village. Is it only for nomads, or can sticks and bricks people or in conventional home at the time also join the our village?
Yeah, so there's no vetting process for our village. You know, that's actually a really good thing to keep in mind, is that for almost all these groups, there's no vetting process. Like, you can't automatically trust someone because they're in one of these groups. And so with our village, yeah, you can be dreaming about RVing and be in our village, just like in any of these other groups. You know, that's where I'm at my home base. For the location, for the current location check-in, that's what that's for. You know, a lot of us don't actually have a home base, who are full-time. So.
And you have numerous compliments. But Lisa, Lisa says, Joni, I think noticing style of interaction is a good start, but how to determine values when we only talk about specific topics in caravans?
Well, you can kind of get a sense for people's values when you're talking about specific, you know, when you're limited to specific topics. People will give kind of offhand remarks. You know, one of the things, I mean, yeah, we don't talk about politics in caravans, but you can kind of get a sense of whether someone's more conservative or more progressive. You can get a sense for whether they're religious or not religious, or you know, whether they're more adventurous or they kind of just aren't, you know, whether they'd like to just hang out or go hiking, that sort of thing. And that is where you can really get to know people, is go on a hike with them. Then you can talk about anything you want.
Wonderful. Your compliments continue to go up, Joni. It's hard to keep up with all the beautiful compliments of how wonderful you did and the awesome information you gave. So, right. So she continued to say, okay, well said. It's all goes back to trust your gut. So she's kind of having a mini conversation with you here.
For sure. Yeah, definitely trust your gut. And also be open and take some chances, not huge risks, but take some chances. Be open to people, and give them some chances. And if you know, if you have to give them more than 2 or 3 chances, then, you know, if they've crossed your lines, whatever your lines are, if they've crossed your lines more than a couple of times, they're not going to be your people.
Wonderful. Rose wants to know, are there hiking buddy apps groups?
I bet there are. Meetup is definitely where you're going to find those. So Meetup is great, especially if you're looking for people who are in a specific location. So like when I know I'm going to be near a city for a little bit, I will look in Meetup for different groups. Now, that's not a great way to find other nomads, but it is a good way to find nice people to do something with while you're at a specific location. And hiking is definitely one of those.
Wonderful. I have another question for you, if you mind, if you don't mind, Joni.
Yeah.
When you are trying to establish connections with nomads, are there any other form of reaching out to nomads other than online groups and the caravans that you know of, or that's the medium of reaching out to nomads?
That's pretty much the medium. I'm sure there
Mhm.
are other ways. Certainly people just randomly bump into each other. You know, if you're if you're parked somewhere and you're walking around, you know, especially if you have a dog. I think dogs are great icebreakers. Dog people like to talk to other dog people. So um, now, if you're not a dog person, but you know, just walking around and being friendly lets other people know that you're looking for, you know, other friendly people.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And just for you guys to know, the chat will open up again at the top of the hour 10, where you will have an additional 15 minutes to talk with each other if you want to continue then. Thank you for all the beautiful compliments to Joni. And let me see if you have more questions here, Joni.
Okay.
This one says maybe off topic, but is there a good place to find a van? I've been looking on Craigslist. Yes, that's definitely off topic.
Yeah. And you know, just the regular, or there's RV Trader, there's like CarMax, I think. I know a lot of people who have successfully gotten their vans off of CarMax.
Right. Trinky says, I'm new to Facebook and I find it a steep learning curve. Appreciate your tips on navigating it. Sure takes a lot of screen time to begin this journey. Vetting people and website, etc. I think it will be worth it, but a bit daunting initially. Thank you for your help.
You're welcome. And that reminded me of another way that when I first started that I found people was through Instagram. So I would follow other van life people and just kind of interact with them. And with Instagram, you can get a pretty good idea of where somebody is. And so when I was near somebody else who I wanted to meet, I would reach out and send them a private message on Instagram. And I actually had a lot of meetups with people and got to know people that way. And I totally forgot about that when I was preparing this.
Okay, so Lori, I'll ask Joni if she wishes to take off-topic questions. Apparently, there's another off-topic question. Do you wish to take off-topic questions, Joni?
If we don't have any others, that's fine.
Okay,
I'll do my best.
She says, which documents do you carry with you all the time, and do you keep a storage unit somewhere?
Okay, well, the storage unit part's easy. I am not a storage unit person. My former in-laws full-timed for 19 years, and they had a storage unit the whole time. And when they got off the road, they went through their storage unit and got rid of everything. So they paid whatever it was every year to store stuff that they didn't want at the end. So I just determined when I got on the road that everything in my van was what I had. As far as documents that I keep, I try and keep everything digitally. So I don't keep much. I'm trying to think of what I have to keep. Like I have a roadside assistance card. I have an insurance card. I try and keep everything digitally as much as possible.
Okay, so if Rose says, if anyone is on the, okay, that can be, we can discuss after about hiking buddies and getting on the road, Rose. So we're going to be wrapping up shortly, Joni. We just have a minute before the presentation ends. So if you wanted to give a summary of your.
Well, I just appreciate you guys all for being here. And this is weird times. You know, we all know this is weird times. It's a little bit harder to find your people right now because everyone's sheltering in place. So just know that, you know, this isn't going to last forever. And while we're sheltering in place, do your best to be online. I know, like someone said, you know, it is a lot of screen time to get everything set up, but it's worth it. It really is worth it to get to know people. I personally have to intentionally camp by myself to be by myself. I have, in just the 3 years that I've been on the road, I've met so many great people, and your people are out there. Just keep trying.
Wonderful. We've come to the end of our presentation for this morning, and we want to thank Joni Zander, Howard's trustee, for a beautiful presentation and all the information she shared for finding connections with other nomads. So have a beautiful morning, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you next Saturday, same time at 9 a.m. Pacific time.